Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler-free review for the first episode of HBO's Dune prequel series, Dune Prophecy, which is giving me really strong Game of Thrones vibes. Which season of Game of Thrones, you ask? I don't want to say. I don't think you want to hear the answer either. Yeah, it's not the seasons you're hoping it gives me the vibes of. Not the ones that are good. No. When I say this is giving me strong Game of Thrones vibes, I do mean that in the derogatory sense. Now, did I expect this to be as good as a Game of Thrones, or maybe something more similar in nature, like, say, I don't know, the Dune movies? Deni V's Dune movies. Did I expect this show, this prequel series that's set in the same universe, is part of the same continuity and all of that, did I expect it to be on the same level of quality in terms of filmmaking, like a cinematography, the score, the acting, just the vibe? Of course not. That would be absolutely insane. You'd be a crazy madman for possibly thinking it would even be half as good as Deni V's Dune 1 and Dune 2. They are spectacular masterpieces. Every single facet of filmmaking is just so expertly done. And just if you don't even take into consideration the story or any of that, just the way the film looks and feels and sounds is just so exciting and new and fresh. And just the score alone is something so alien and unique, and it just seeps into your soul and your bones, and it's something that you truly feel. And it just looks so gorgeous and beautiful. The acting's incredible. And then the way it tells its story, every single part of Dune, Deni V's Dune, is so good. So I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to be that good. But it is a HBO show. It is a HBO show. So I expected it to look and feel like a HBO show. And maybe it does? I'm not even sure. Because there are some shots in this where you look at it and you go, yeah, no, I guess that's what Game of Thrones looks like sometimes or something. Kind of looks like The Witcher or Wheel of Time or something. It doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look like one of those budget shows on the Sci-Fi Channel, really, really cheap kind of stuff, really old school 90s sci-fi kind of stuff. But at the same time, compared to Deni V's Dune, it does. This is so cheap and so shallow and hollow, and it comes across like I'm watching the CW version of Dune. It's embarrassing at times. The dialogue is weak, the acting is stale and flat, the cinematography, I would say, is non-existent. They film just, a standard shot to shot like you'd see on a soap opera that you'd be watching at 3:30 p.m. on an afternoon. And maybe it's just because I just rewatched Dune, so the comparison is super fresh. Because I'm it's Dune time. Dune time, baby. Let's get back into those sandy dunes. And get all sandy and stuff. Anakin, I am not. I'm all about the sand, baby. Except in real life, I'm very much an Anakin. The sand is the worst. It sucks. It is coarse and rough, and it actually does get everywhere. But in cinema situations or whatever, I love sand. I love sand. Furiosa, Mad Max Fury Road, Dune 1 and 2. Was really hoping to put Dune Prophecy on this list of sand-based things that I love in pop culture. But no, this is so incomprehensibly bad. It's so bad, and you can probably tell that because I've just said so many words and said nothing about the show. Because I watched, 65, 70 minutes of the first episode. Long, dull, meandering. It's a sprawling epic with 1 million characters, and it's like Game of Thrones. There's people talking politics and stuff. Intrigue, scheming, and some vague magic stuff or whatever. And it's all just so derivative. It's so dull. It's so uninspired. It's so uninteresting in the most painful way. And it really truly makes me even question, do I even like Dune as a franchise, as a thing? Or do I just love Deni V and his filmmaking? and how he brought something to Dune. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I just think that speaks to how bad this is, that it makes me question this amazing series and whether I even care about it at all. Okay, so what even is Dune Prophecy about? Well, it's set 10,000 million billion years in the future, in the past. It doesn't matter. Well, I suppose no, it does. It's set 10,000 years in the past. Before Timmy Chonker's Paul Atreides was born, 10,000 years in the past, we follow all the magic witch ladies who conspired to mix bloods and races and peoples and stuff and make them all have sex and force them to, breed and stuff. Like a dog breeder, but for people. And they tried to make a certain bloodline to make a Timmy Chonker. And they did. And we know they did, because we've seen the movies that matter. And this is a prequel set 10,000 years in the past, where that's still their goal. And they apparently don't achieve it for 10,000 years. But the magic witch ladies, the Bezageries, the Berry Jerrys, the Bezageries, the Bezagais, I'd love to try and puzzle out what the magic witch ladies are called. They're wearing the black cloaks like they're going to a funeral, and they're all spooky and mysterious and intriguing and terrifying. Those magic witch ladies that you do remember from the Dune movies, they're the main characters, and just imagine how you will remember them from the Dune movies. Mysterious, terrifying, intriguing. There's a weird, unknowable sense about them. Like they're more than you could possibly ever figure out or know. And they're just this thing that exists, and they are behind everything, pulling the strings, like the puppet masters behind all the political minutiae of the world of Dune. What if instead of that, it was more of like how do I describe this in the most polite way possible? CW teen/young adults bickering amongst themselves in ways that don't feel like interesting political minutiae and backdoor dealings, and more just like a bunch of soap opera nonsense and just people just whispering little nothings and murmuring little asides of nothing to each other. And it's all just very plain, very blunt, very obvious. And yet at the same time, I'm still not sure exactly why I should care, what exactly people's motivations are. Scenes happen and it doesn't have any intrigue. It doesn't have any kind of like sense of suspense or mystery. You're not like, ooh, what's going on here? You're just kind of like, what is going on here now? And the whole first episode, and to be clear, I've just seen the first episode. So maybe they stop being CWYA novel characters and start becoming, HBO characters with nuance and intrigue and interest. I just don't really feel like that's going to happen. I've watched one of the 6 episodes of your first season. How many seasons are you getting? How many seasons do they want to make this? I don't know. But all I know is you gotta hook me. You gotta hook me quickly in your first hour. Something in there has got to keep me invested and intrigued in this universe. And I feel like this is kind of coasting on the goodwill of Deni V's Dune movies. I feel like it's coasting on the goodwill of people who love the books, people who love this universe. They show a sandworm on like a hologram video at one point, and someone has a dream or something. I don't know. I can't even remember at this point. It was literally 2 hours ago. I've already just forgotten because it was just so unmemorable and uninspired and derivative and boring. It just feels like they are expecting me to love Dune so much that I'm already invested. I'm already just like in. Whereas this is a new thing. It's set 10,000 years in the past. Give me something. Give me something new and fresh. Give me something that makes me go, this is a new Dune story I want to follow. Whereas it just kind of feels like they took the aesthetic of the Bezagenerate. I just still can't remember them. And there's just no way for me to figure out what they're called. The magic witch ladies all wear those black kind of funeral things over their faces. So they did that 10,000 years ago. Their design hasn't changed. They created something classic and they didn't change for 10,000 years. Because that is actually how clothing fashion works. It just stays stagnant for 10,000 years. So outside of the fact that it just felt so embarrassingly cheap compared to Deni V's Dune, and that just felt really disappointing, especially from a HBO product of content. Oh, that was a horrible sentence I just said. Piece of artistic art that was made. It felt cheap and bad, and it sucked, and I hated that. Just throw that aside. Let's clear our minds of the fact that Deni V Dune is one of the best things ever made, and that this is just not as good. Just, I'm being a professional. For the first time in my life, let's just clear that. What didn't work? Well, one, characters. I reckon we got introduced to maybe 15 characters in this first episode, and I have no reason to care about any of them. I have no reason to like or even dislike any of them. Like, I just had no emotional feeling towards any of them. They overstuffed it. It's messy and it's overstuffed. There's too many people, too many characters. No one gets enough time to be fleshed out. But I think the worst thing is they're trying so hard to dive into that kind of political intrigue and political minutiaing and like backdoor dealings and scheming and all those words or whatever that Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones style shows do so well, or did so well. And it goes, okay, so we'll meet like some kind of king, or I don't know, some kind of leaderish guy meeting another leaderish guy. And is he a war general or another king from another realm? I don't know. And I wasn't made aware of why I should care. And they've both got the Bene Gesserits. Bene Gesserits! Is that it? Bene Gesserits. I feel like I'm getting close. The magic witch ladies, they've both got little magic witch ladies on the side who are all doing like little hand signals to like communicate their political schemings. And there's 4 people, and there's a whole thing going on. But I don't know anything about the characters and why I should care about these emotions of these humans. Like, why should I care what's happening? It's just 4 people political minutiaing. But like, no, give me a character. Give me something to like cling on to. Like, who do I like in this scene? Who do I dislike? Are they both right? Are they both wrong? Like, I just don't even know where I'm meant to sit and feel or like live in this scene. It's just people being like, political minutiaing, and they're just saying gobbly-gookly nothing. And that's what every scene is. There's a scene where it's like, we've got to do the wedding, and then one of them's like, I don't know if we should do the wedding. And I'm like, whose wedding? Why wedding? What is happening? You have to give me some kind of emotional connection to any character. And sure, maybe you're watching this being like, you didn't realize whose wedding that was or something? Were you not watching? No. After about 15 minutes of just excruciating, just like aggressive exposition dumping for 15 minutes, I will admit, I've got a slightly smaller TV next to my giant TV in my living room that maybe sometimes sport comes on when I'm playing a video game. Was the cricket on at a certain point, maybe 20 minutes into this episode? I can neither confirm nor deny those allegations. So in conclusion, it just feels like it's really focused on lore and exposition in the most uninspired, dull ways, and it's not focused on character, and that's the thing that's going to get you into this series, because we all love the universe of Dune, but everything that they're doing in this isn't kind of fresh or unique or interesting to this timeline. There's one little wrinkle in the lore to do with the machines. They did a big Terminator Judgment Day uprising at one point, and they stopped the Terminator Judgment Day rising, and there's no more machines, and that's super interesting. I feel like I heard one of my friends say that once, which I never really got with the Dune movies, but it makes sense why they don't have guns, because machines or something, maybe, I don't know. So that's like an angle that could be really, really interesting, and there's one point where a kid has a toy that's a machine, and everybody freaks out. And that's the one scene in this whole 90, 80 minutes or whatever. It felt like I watched it for 3 hours. It was so slow, so boring. But that was the one scene for 5 minutes where everybody at this party had an emotional reaction in different ways to this thing appearing. And I was like, oh, that feels like I'm seeing a little glimpse, a little sparkle of a better show that this could have been. It doesn't really feel like it's interested in that being that story about like machines maybe coming back and how do the humans deal with that and all this kind of stuff with this machineless world, and the machines had this big uprising. They did a big at the Terminator, and so how do humans deal with this? Is it kind of coming back into surface? It kind of feels like that's just going to be this thing that pops up here and there, because it really does feel very hell-bent on being Game of Thrones light. Budget Game of Thrones, home brand Game of Thrones. Yes, I just said the same thing 3 times, but I just don't have anything much to say, so I just really want to hammer home the one thing that it feels like, which is just, remember Game of Thrones? And remember that time you were like, Mum, I want to go out for Game of Thrones tonight. And your mum's like, we have Game of Thrones at home. She had Dune Prophecy at home, and no one ate well that night. And so outside of the fact it is exposition and plot over character, which feels like not the way to start this show, at least for me personally, the second biggest thing is it is just the most classic prequel. The main plot is about magic witch ladies who've got to make a chimichanga. They want to make a chimichanga, and they gotta do it so they can rule the world or whatever because of something magic, dreams and prophecies, Dune Prophecy, and yeah, I've seen Dune. So they make a Paul Atreides. Chimichanga's Paul Atreides. They did it. It succeeded, but he's like, you guys suck, and he doesn't like you guys. I don't know. It's like we know the outcome, so these 10,000 years feel kind of pointless, and it's so far in the past, yet still so integrally connected to something that's the main plot. So it feels really weird where it's like, it's clearly going to be telling its own self-contained story, but the main goal and outcome of all of our main characters, particularly our main lead, Magic Witch Lady, is to make a chimichanga in the future through blood merging and making certain people have sex with other certain people. So it just feels kind of pointless because I'm like, well, they succeed. They did it. It doesn't matter. Like, maybe they won't do it at this, but then in the other 9,999 years between this show and then, they did it. They did it. She succeeded. So it just feels like it falls into that very classic prequel situation where it's like, I just know what's going to happen. And I wish this show would make it feel like that's not relevant. But despite the fact it is a prequel, sometimes that doesn't matter. In a lot of ways, that never should matter because it's about the journey, not the destination. Just ask anyone who watched Game of Thrones. I like that Ragnar's in the show. Ragnar Lothbrok's there, and he's like, I'm Ragnar Lothbrok. But unfortunately, he's not as charming or interesting or likable. Unfortunately, any exciting word that you would use to describe Ragnar Lothbrok, you probably wouldn't use to describe... I don't know what his name is, and I never will. I might watch the last 5 episodes, like when they're all out. I might binge them all one morning, hungover, when I'm like half watching and half trying not to die because I feel so sick inside while I eat pizza. And like, you know, I go to grab a glass of water on the table, but it's still like a half drunk beer from the last night, and I drink it and then I'm like, wah! So I'll be watching in that kind of mindset. And I'm sure it will be still pretty bad.